What's up, Duval? It's your favorite former Jag, Bucky Brooks, hosting Bleav in Jaguars. And look, we're going to bring one of our own back into the building, the host of the Bleav in Texans podcast, Houston Texans MC, when we get a chance to go to H-Town to put it down. Cecil Shorts. What's going on, Cecil?
What's going on, Bucky, man? How you doing?
Man, I am good. And look, I got to start the pod off. Look, it's the first time that I've had a former Jag on. So I just got to ask you, when you hear this chant, when you hear Duval, what are the memories that come to mind for you?
Good memories, man. Being in Jacksonville, being in that stadium, just hearing the fans scream and roar for you. When I was there from, I think, 2011 and 2014, we weren't that good, but the fans were still loyal. They still support you. You could be in the mall. You could be at a restaurant. All you hear, Duval, like you look like, let's go. So definitely good memories for sure.
It's so funny that chant has kind of become like the tag card. It doesn't matter where you are, what part of the country. If someone does that, you're like, oh, you're with us.
Yeah,
you're down with us. And so when I think about it, it's even hard for me. Like when the Jags go on the road and we go to H-Town, and I sit there and I see you on the other side of the field doing all the MC stuff, getting the Texans rowdy. I'm gonna tell you, I feel some kind of way. Like I feel some kind of way, even though like I get it. You played there. You're part of that franchise and the brand. But I'm gonna tell you, man, I feel a little way when I see you out there. What has the transition been like for you, going from being a Jag to now really being synonymous with the Houston Texans?
Ooh, it's been tough. I've spent 4 years in Jacksonville. So it's like, spending 4 years at a high school or 4 years at a college, right? I grew up in Jacksonville. Like I became a man in Jacksonville. I went through some personal battles in Jacksonville. I was married in the time I was in Jacksonville. I got married. I had a church home there. I had friends there. It was just, I was living life in Jacksonville. And actually so I spent 4 years in Jackson. Then I signed a 2-year deal to go to Houston. The plan was we bought a home in Jacksonville and like, all right, I was get a small apartment right by the stadium in Houston, just work there and then come back. And we're going to, as our forever home, we're going to be in Jacksonville. We love the city. We were on the south side of town. We like, all right, this is where we're going to have our kids grow up at and the whole nine. And then my wife ended up being pregnant with our third child at the time. And she came for a training camp, or if it came for a preseason game, she's like, I'm not going back home. I can't be away from y'all. So that's how we were in Houston. 1 year, I spent 1 year here of my NFL career in Houston, and then we loved it here, but we didn't know this position was coming.
Yeah.
So a few years later, retired, but we never knew this was coming. But Houston does an excellent job of pouring back into their former players and finding different ways to use their abilities and use it in the community, which every NFL team has, right? Mm-hmm. They call them the legends. And they use that, Houston uses that to put us out in front of the community, still be close to them. They pay us for it. It's all fun and grand. Well, I started getting pretty good at hosting different events in front of businesses, events in front of different schools, whatever the case may be. And they're like, hey, we came up with this position of being like an MC for the games. And at first I'm like, nah, I'm good. I can't see myself doing it. I'm like, nah, I don't know about this. They're like, just give it a try. Just give it a try and see how it is. And long story short, I fell in love with it. Like literally fell in love with being on the field, being close to the game. You get to interact with different fans that get to come on the field and just being able to, maybe that's the only time they have that experience, being on an NFL field, being that person that can help them have a good time, have fun, have them laugh, enjoy that experience is so fulfilling. It's so fulfilling. So I'm just very grateful for the opportunity. I only played there 1 year. So it's always weird when I see the Jacksonville Jaguars come to town and I got all this Houston gear on and I got all this stuff. And I still know everybody. I still know a lot of people that work in the front office or the business offices. So it's like, I still know the strength. When I was there, the strength coach is there. He was the assistant strength coach. Now he's the head strength coach now, Big Sid. So it's like, I still know tons of people and my heart is still there. But I honestly still Still love Jacksonville. It's just, I got a job to do. And I love
No,
Houston for sure. I got a job to do. They pay the bills. Let's pay it well.
yeah. No, look at. I certainly get it. You're talking to someone who played almost 6 seasons for 5 different teams. I understand how you can have that tug of war in terms of your
Yeah.
allegiances.
Yeah.
But like I think your background makes it perfect for us to have this conversation. Obviously, you're with the Houston Texans. We're here talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're behind enemy lines, and so I just have to ask you, like, when you're in H-Town and you look at the Jaguars, like, how does this team, how does that organization, how do they view the Jaguars? Do they view them as rivals? Like, what kind of back and forth is that when the Texans line up against the Jags?
It's definitely a rivalry. Anytime you face a AFC South opponent in Houston, they want to take your head off. Like that's just how the fans feel. They want nothing to do with any other AFC South team. Now, is this the most hated AFC South team? I don't know. It might be the Titans because of the kind of the history that's here. If that makes sense. The former Oilers and the color kind of going back and forth. But anytime the AFC South person is in town, they know it's going to be a tough matchup. And they understand, hey, this is an important game. It's never an easy game when you play somebody twice a year. You know them, they know you. The fans, they love it, and they understand that, and they have a respect for the Jaguars.
So what's interesting is I Bleav that the Texans have kind of replaced the Jaguars based in terms of being not only the media darling, but the team that analysts and experts are predicting to come out of the South to kind of make the Super Bowl run. Yeah. When you look at, I guess, some of the missteps that the Jaguars made a year ago, what are some of the lessons that maybe the Texans can take from the Jaguars' failures to help them avoid some of the setbacks that the Jaguars experienced last year in 2023?
Ooh, man. Well, that's tough because the Jags were, they weren't the hottest teams in the NFL at one point. 8-3. I Bleav coming off a bye week. Mm-hmm. They were rolling, right? I think the biggest issue with Jacksonville is something they can learn from in Houston. I felt like Trevor Lawrence wasn't at his best and didn't play well when he was injured. When he wasn't injured, I thought he was fine. I thought he was a top 10 type quarterback. When he was injured, I feel like he was forcing things. He wasn't himself. He couldn't be mobile. He couldn't get out the pocket. So when you look at Houston, you pray that, CJ doesn't get hurt. But anybody else that's fighting injuries, if they can't be themselves, okay, let's find somebody else. And I've seen Jacksonville address that issue. We'll go out there and get Mac Jones, getting a former first-round pick that's won games, a former Pro Bowler, somebody that understands, okay, I can come in, win a game or two, kind of get my resume back up, get back on a good swing of things, and then maybe I can be a starter somewhere else, right? But when you bring a solid backup in, I think that's going to be huge for, barring, God forbid, any injuries that happen to Trevor. Mm-hmm. But I think that was one of the biggest downfalls for the Jacksonville last year, kind of forcing him to play when he not even forcing him. He want, as a former player, you want to play. That's just what it is. You want to play. You're taught to fight through everything. So no knock on him, but if you're not 100% going to help this team, I think that hurt him last year.
No, I think it's really interesting because that was a big part of it. When the Jaguars were 8-3, Trevor Lawrence was rolling the offense, was beginning to kind of find its way. And then the injuries, it didn't necessarily keep him out of the lineup from playing, but what it did is it prevented him from practicing. And as a wideout, that chemistry and that connectivity that you have to have with the quarterback, that's something that has to be honed in and refined every week. So you've had an opportunity to play without your starting quarterback. How big of an adjustment is it to play with a backup quarterback as opposed to the starter that you're used to seeing every week?
Oh, it's completely different. The timing is different. You're trying to build timing with your backup. And no matter what, people can say, oh, you get a few reps with the backup quarterback. You see him in practice and training camp. That does not equal to the type of chemistry, the type of timing, the type of relationship you have on the field with your starting quarterback. There's nothing like it. So when you play with a backup, you're kind of relearning him because that quarterback likes things differently. He might like to throw this in route in the second hole, not the first hole, right? He kind of sees things differently, right? He has different tendencies. He has different attributes. So it's definitely different when you're playing with that type of quarterback. Plus, it's a confidence thing. So all backup quarterbacks aren't extremely confident as the starter, or they could be. It just depends, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to learn that particular quarterback in that short amount of time. They call plays differently. They signal differently. There's so many different small things that goes into it people don't think about, but it's a huge difference. The deep ball, the speed of the ball, if they're a lefty, if they're a righty, how much power they have on it. It's just the timing, and it's not an easy thing. So it throws a lot of things off. I know Calvin Ridley was getting some issues, not some issues. He was getting some criticism for not understanding, I guess, different play calls and stuff. But when you're dealing with different quarterbacks, when you're dealing with different things, that can throw you off a little bit. Still no excuse, not saying I don't know the details in and out of that, but I understand that could be a thing when it's a different quarterback in the game.
Yeah, it absolutely can be a thing. And you talk about it. I think it's really important for listeners and viewers to understand. In the pros, everyone doesn't get the same amount of reps to learn plays and to go through it. And at the quarterback position in particular, the starting quarterbacks takes almost all the reps. They throw the backup quarterback some crumbs, but the way the league is set up, it is about the starting quarterback getting the bulk of the reps, making sure that you're on the same page with him. So when you do have an injury, it's a major loss in terms of just how the rhythm and the flow of the offense goes, because no one has really operated with the backup quarterback in the game.
Yeah, I mean, even offensive line, a lot of the calls, a lot of the checks, a lot of the mic calls, the line of scrimmage, who you're blocking if this guy blitz, who you're blocking if that guy blitz, that's coming from the quarterback in a lot of systems. So that quarterback, the starting quarterback, may see something different than the backup quarterback, or he may not call it all, or may he call it differently. Maybe he calls it early or late. The snap count, that's a big thing. Like the cadence and how they call the cadence. There's so many small things that we don't think about that really matter when it comes to executing on offense.
So naturally, because we're talking about the quarterback, I don't want you to necessarily say who you Bleav is better, but I would like to compare and contrast the two quarterbacks, because in my opinion, CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence are the class of the division. When you look at both of those quarterbacks, just go through some of the similarities and differences between the two quarterbacks, the franchise quarterbacks of the Texans and the Jaguars.
Ooh, some similarities. I think they are two intelligent young men. I think they see the field decently well. I think they have strong arms, can make any throw across the field, whether on either hash. I think they're both mobile. CJ is sneaky mobile. Like, he's more athletic than people think. We all kind of knew Trevor Lawrence was very mobile. He did a lot of running in college, whereas CJ is kind of the opposite. He was a guy that stood back there and was reading and throwing the ball to, his 4 first-round draft picks he had at Ohio State. But one thing that stood out about CJ is the Georgia game. When they played Georgia in the college football playoff, he had to get out the pocket. He had to run, because you're going against one of the best defenses ever in college football, and he did it well. So I think that's a similarity they have. TJ probably does it. Not TJ. Trevor probably does it a little better and probably called on his number a little more. But those are some good similarities. I do think that their stature is similar, even though I think Trevor's bigger, about 6'6", if I'm not mistaken, right, Bucky?
6'5", 6'6".
I think they see the field well. I think CJ has a interesting way of, not interesting way, it's rare for a rookie quarterback to be able to go through his progression the way he went through his progression last year as a rookie. I never seen that before. And looking at Trevor, it took a while for Trevor to get there. Most quarterbacks, not knock on Trevor, most quarterbacks take a while to go through their progression. But I remember watching week 1, CJ, he's looking at number 1, looking at number 2. I'm gonna throw the check down. I'm like, whoa. And he did it again. I'm like, whoa, that's something you don't see.
Yeah.
Like, you're more likely to see a quarterback seeing ghosts than you are him going through his progression. That got better as time went on. So I think there's some similarities there. There's a lot more similarities out there. I do think they're both top 10. I'll be honest with you. I think when they're both healthy, they're both a top 10 quarterback. The talent is there. I mean, Trevor's he's been the Jesus for coming back for forever. Like, he's been that dude for a long time. We've heard his name forever. So I do think there's a lot of similarities. And I think when you look at the quarterback position in the AFC South, you mentioned it, they're the upper echelon. It's those two and then everybody else. Anthony Richardson still has a lot to prove. Hasn't played only, for 1/4 of the season. and then Will Levis still has some stuff to prove. So if you look at it, those two guys to me not only are top in their division, but to me they're top 10 quarterbacks overall.
Yeah, no, it's funny because and you certainly will get this as a former player. There's a feeling that you have when you have a franchise quarterback. And I would like to think that when the Houston Texans are down and it's 2 minutes left in the game, and if they get the ball back to CJ Stroud, there's probably a feeling in the stadium that he is going to get it done. I know on our end in Jacksonville, when Trevor Lawrence gets it at the end, you feel like he's going to find a way to make it work. So as we're looking at these two rivals and as they're climbing, what do you think the differences are between the Texans and the Jaguars as they vie for the division crown heading into this season?
Ooh.
Because right now everyone loves y'all. Y'all are the best team that we've ever seen.
Oh yeah, they're the hottest team right now. But it's different playing on paper than in real life. You know that? Like, it's different. The thing about the Texans, I'll say this to start off. Jacksonville's been there and done that. They've felt the hype. They've been through the hype. They kind of failed with the hype a little bit last second half of the year, but I think that's going to make them better for this upcoming run this season, right? And then they added a few pieces here and there. I think the adjustment the Texans will have to make is what Jacksonville went through last year. Can they handle all the hype? Can they handle being talked about week in and week out? Can they handle being eyes on you? You're not sneaking up on nobody no more. The Houston Texans will be, I think they're the fourth hardest schedule in the league at this upcoming year, based off last year's, records. But everybody's going to give you their best now. There's no more sneaking up on anybody. There's no more, this team could possibly be good. On paper, you are one of the best teams, especially on the offensive side of the ball, out there. There's no excuse. You just paid Nico Collins $72 million to go catch the football. You got Stephon Diggs, who the last 5-6 years had over 1,000 yards each year, over 100 targets, one of the best receivers in the game over the last half a decade. Then you got Tank Dell, who is just a tremendous target, over 700 yards last year. So I think how they handle Joe Mixon, all these people, they got 2 tackles and Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil, one of the best in the game, and Titus Howard, who you paid. Like, it's so much there. The anticipation, the expectations are extremely high. How do you live up to it week in and week out? I think there's so many similarities. Doug Peterson, this is his second or third year there.
Third year.
Like, so him being early on and D'Amico being early on in their tenure, how do they handle that? I think a lot of stuff that Jacksonville went through last year, I think we're going to have to see how the Houston can handle that, right? But there's tons of similarities. They both got tons of weapons on offense. Yeah. My gosh. Oh, man, from Travis Etienne to Brian Thomas, who you just drafted, to Christian Kirk, to Evan Ingram. There's Gabe Davis. Oh, my gosh. There's tons of talent on that roster. It's going to be about who can execute, right? And to me, it's also going to be about, especially when they play each other, the pass rush, and then how can you defend?
Yeah.
So when you look at Josh Allen, who's got 150 million reasons to be happy and smiling right now, how can him and the other guys on that defensive line create pressure and get to the quarterback? How can Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson Jr., Danico Autry, how can these guys get pressure on the quarterback? Can they stop the run? I think there's tons of questions more on the defensive side for both of these teams than offense. So it's going to be interesting to see how they turn out this year. But there's so many similarities, man. Like, there's so many. I think Houston may be a little more experienced on offense, just as a total than Jaguars. I look at the roster, maybe just skill positions, but it's going to be a toe-to-toe. I expect dog fights. I'm not going to lie to you. AFC South, I expect some dog fights. I expect some teams to really go, especially these two, go at it head-to-head. You see each other twice. I expect them to be fighting for the AFC South title, but also to get a pretty high seed in the AFC this conference.
I think it's going to be really, really interesting. And I want to kind of lean on your experience as a player, as a wide receiver. you obviously witnessed Tank Dell come in and hit the ground running immediately. Well, in Jacksonville, you have BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr. coming in, and tremendous expectations around his arrival and what he could potentially be as maybe a down the line number one receiver. You also have Gabe Davis, who comes in, new environment, new situation. You've had to do that before in your career. What are the challenges that BTJ and Gabe Davis face in trying to make an immediate impact in their first year with the Jaguars?
The thing about Gabe Davis, I'm excited for him. Because I think he still young. I Bleav he's on 25-ish, somewhere in there. But his targets, if you look at Stephon Diggs' targets compared to his, it was like Stephon had double, almost triple the targets he had, right? But he was still very productive. He was clutch in the playoffs. It was you can count on him in the big moments, right? I see for him really learning the offense and getting chemistry with Trevor. That's going to be the biggest thing. When you gain trust from your quarterback, that's any receiver, rookie or vet. When you gain trust for your quarterback, the targets will come. And then when you make plays, he's like, I can trust him. More plays are coming. More balls are coming, right? So I think when it comes to Gabe, is really understanding the offense, understanding his role. Okay, am I down the field threat? How can he get better on this route running? The whole nine. And kind of just being himself, making the big plays in the big moments, right? When you're a vet, you were coming from somewhere, you're kind of used to certain habits or certain ways you were used in the past with different teams. I think he needs to be open-minded and understand, too, you come into a team that has tons of weapons. You have Christian Kirk. You have Evan Ingram. Whatever targets you get, just make the most of it. So understanding his role, I think, will be tremendous for him when it comes to this offense. Also understanding they're going to run the football. You still got to run the football. You still got Trevor. You got T.E., who's one of the best running backs in the game. He was a playmaker last year, almost to the point where I thought they used him a little. I was nervous they're going to use him a little too much. He got tons of touches, tons of carries. But when he's a playmaker for you, I mean, I get it. When it comes to BTJ, I love that nickname, by the way. He's so explosive. What do you average? 20 yards a catch almost? I
mean, it's silly. It was like over 17 touchdowns his final season at LSU. Just a big play machine.
Like for him, I think as a rookie, I think it's hard for guys, but really humbling yourself. I know you're a first-round pick, but learn from the veterans in the room. They're still around for a reason, and you can take wisdom from anybody. So learn what you can from Gabe. Learn what you can from Evan. Learn what you can from Christian Kirk. Learn what you can from any veteran that's still there, right? And put that into your game. Because even though he has had an incredible year and went first round, there's still a ton he can learn. He can still become a better route runner. He still can learn how to create separation and beat the press, right? In the league, he's not going to be able to run by everybody like he was in LSU. It's man on man, right? You're going to have to really show that you can do what you did at LSU in the league. So learn as much as you can. I'm assuming they'll have a package of plays for him early on. And in those package, I would encourage him to master his playbook. So if you got 10 plays, really master those 10 plays. If you master that, whether you get the ball or not, your playbook and your playing time will expand. Then you master those 15, master those 20, master those 30, and then time will go from there. But if he's learning how to be in the right spot at the right time, learning where does Trevor like me on this particular play? Where is he looking at for me on this particular route? Learning the coverages, learning different. When I come to the line of scrimmage, what am I looking at? I'm looking at my triangle. I'm looking at the cornerback in front of me, the nickel or the linebacker inside of me, and where's that near safety? That way I can see what coverage is going on, what my cues are, what my keys are. It's so many things he could do as a rookie just to really get better for Trevor and get ready for that offense. But he has to learn his particular plays because you know how it is, Buck. It's younger guys they try to bring on slowly. Then once they're ready, I mean, certain guys they can take on whatever, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. probably is a guy from day one. You got to figure it out, like just go for it. But BCJ's in a good situation where you got playmakers up there too. It's not just going to be you. So learn from those guys, learn your plays, be in the right spot, line up correctly, and then your moments, your plays, your playing time will expand from there.
Yeah, no, it's really a fascinating thing. You obviously know, having come to the league from our Union 4th-round pick, how to like kind of scratch and claw to get into the rotation and do those things. But you guys also have a similar situation. I'm gonna be honest with you. On my side, scared to death of what that combination of Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins could be, because it was tough enough last year with Nico Collins and Tank Dell early in the year. Now you have Stephon Diggs coming in. What is he going to bring to the Texans? Why did he even feel compelled to bring another veteran, another playmaker when you had all those guys? Like, what are y'all doing? Why does Stephon Diggs have what does he bring to this Texans team that could push them over the top?
Number one, durability. I mean, he's been one of the most durable receivers the last 5, 6, 7 years. He's going to play. If you look at his history, he's going to play back when it was 16, 17 games. He's going to play majority, if not all of those games. He is a durable guy. And when you're durable, you can be counted on. You can be dependable. I heard this all the time. Your best ability is your availability, right? And with him being available, he's naturally going to get targets. Whether you like it or not, he's the number one receiver. Whether you agree with not, he's the number one receiver. Why? Because his resume. He's been one of the top dogs in the league. He has to be the number one guy. But now when you bring him into the mix with Nico, who had, I think, 1,400 yards last year, whatever it was, when you got Tank, who was just a Deshaun Jackson type of guy, explosive play waiting to happen, now what are you going to do as a defense? You're going to double Stephon? Okay, you got one-on-one with Tank on your third cornerback. You got one-on-one with Nico on your second cornerback. Now you got to play more true. So now what you're doing is you're opening up the entire offense. You're keeping the defense honest. So go ahead and double somebody if you want to. CJ gonna pick him apart. He gonna pick him apart. And one thing CJ does well is, like I talked about earlier, he goes through his progression. He's not gonna force anything. If it's not there, he'll go to check down. His check down this year is who? Joe Mixon. Oh my Lord. like it's crazy, right? But what he's going to do, Stephon, he's going to be able to, if you watch him in Buffalo, they motion him a lot. He'll start outside. He'll come inside to the slot. Now the defense got to communicate. And so you're finding mismatches there. He can play inside. He can play outside. You can move Tank inside and out. It's just so many things you could do, from quick screens to play action. You might be passing to set up the run in this situation in Houston, right? Because they have so many weapons. But this is just a interesting dynamic. On paper, one of the best receiving groups in the league on paper. They got to go out there and prove it. But on paper, man, if they stay healthy, this can be a scary, scary, explosive sight.
Well, look, one thing that is scary is just a potential matchup and what it could be when the Texans and the Jaguars square off this year. Really looking forward to it, because you talk about two teams that are on the rise, two teams that are extremely talented. And obviously, look, the division has to go through H-Town, the defending division champs. You know, Jaguars got to get that crown back. So it should be fun to do it. We'll continue to have these conversations, because I'm looking forward to having you back on Bleav in Jaguars. But, man, I can't thank you enough. Cecil Shorts, one of our own, even though he wears all that red and all that, he's still a Jag. He still gets excited when Duval is chanted out. So, look, man, thanks for coming on Bleav in Jaguars. That's the podcast. Hey, you guys, make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on all your podcast platforms. Make sure you check out Bleav in Jaguars, but also Bleav in Texans on the Bleav Network on Fubo. All things great. Just keep coming back, man. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is Shorts. We'll chat with you.